The rain hit the metal roofs hard in New Seattle Colony. Lights flickered on the broken street poles. Everything looked cold and empty. Most people stayed inside after dark, but Jack was walking alone, hands in his coat pockets, eyes watching the puddles. He was a human mechanic, known for fixing old things no one cared about. His workshop was down the street, quiet, full of scrap parts and silence. Tonight, he was just coming back from a supply run. Then he heard it. A voice, soft and shaking, came from a dark alley between two broken buildings. "Excuse me, mister," it said. "Can you help us?" "Please." Jack stopped. He looked around. No one else was near. The voice came again, this time clearer. "My mom. She's not waking up." He slowly turned and stepped into the alley. His boots splashed in shallow water. A small figure stood in the shadows, no taller than a 6-year-old child. She had silver eyes that glowed softly, skin pale with a bluish tint, and small marks on her forehead. An alien child, alone, barefoot, and soaking wet. Jack blinked, unsure. "Where's your mother?" he asked, careful and calm. The girl pointed deeper into the alley. Jack followed, his instincts on high alert. This could be a trap. Many gangs use children for scams. But what he found made his heart ache. A woman, clearly alien, lay on the ground beside a pile of trash. She was barely breathing. Her lips cracked, her skin bruised. Her arms were wrapped around her chest, holding tight as if trying to protect herself even while unconscious. "She didn't eat for 2 days," the little girl whispered. "She gave me all the food, and now she won't wake up." Jack knelt down and checked her pulse. Faint, but there, he pulled off his jacket and covered the woman quickly. The girl stood close, eyes wide with fear. "What's your name?" Jack asked. "Lyra," she whispered. "And my mom is Kira." Jack took a deep breath. He didn't know what to do, but he couldn't leave them here. There was something about the child's voice, too honest, too real. "All right, Lyra," he said. "Help me lift her. We're going to my place." Lyra's small hands helped as best as they could. Jack carried Kira in his arms through the alley. The rain kept falling, but Jack didn't care. He walked fast, feeling her shallow breaths against his chest. When they reached the workshop, Jack kicked open the door and laid Kira gently on an old cot. He turned on the heater, grabbed dry blankets, and handed one to Lyra. "Change into this," he said. "You'll catch cold." Lyra nodded and changed behind a curtain. Jack found some warm broth and gave it to her. She sipped slowly, her hands shaking from cold and hunger. "She was trying to find work," Lyra said softly, "but no one wanted us. They called us dirty mixes." Jack didn't understand, but he didn't ask. He just listened as Lyra kept talking, her words trembling. "They said we shouldn't be alive. But my mom never gave up, even when she cried at night." Jack looked over at the sleeping alien woman. Her face was soft now, peaceful. But her body was still weak. Lyra walked to her mother, sat beside her, and gently stroked her hand. Then she looked up at Jack with those glowing silver eyes and asked, "If you help her, can you be my dad?" Jack froze. "What?" he said, unsure if he heard right. "You saved us," Lyra said. "Dad is someone who saves and protects, right? I've never had one, but if you stay, maybe my mom will smile again." Jack opened his mouth to reply, but no words came. The rain tapped on the windows like tiny fingers. A human, a broken alien mother, and a little girl with silver eyes. It was the strangest thing Jack had seen in years, but somehow it didn't feel wrong. It felt important. He sat down in the chair beside them and looked at the girl. "Let's first make sure she gets better," Jack said. Lyra nodded, then lay down beside her mother and held her tightly. Her small voice whispered, "Thank you, Dad." Jack didn't correct her. He just sat there, listening to the storm outside, and wondering what strange road he had just stepped on. Morning light slipped through the cracked window of Jack's workshop. The rain had stopped, but the air was still heavy and cold. Inside, it was quiet to quiet. Jack sat at his workbench, pretending to check a broken engine core, but his eyes kept drifting back to the old cot in the corner. There, under thick blankets, lay the alien woman, Kira, still unconscious. Her chest moved up and down slowly, like the last flame in a dying fire. Beside her sat little Lyra. Still awake after a long night, she held her mother's hand tightly, her small fingers wrapped around Kira's. She hadn't cried, not once, just stared at her mom, waiting, hoping. Jack brought over a bowl of warm broth. He handed it to Lyra. "Here, you need to eat too." Lyra looked at him, then at her mom. "She won't eat unless I eat too," she whispered. "She says it's a rule." Jack smiled a little, trying to hide his worry. "Well, then follow the rule," he said. "Eat first. She follow when she wakes up." Lyra slowly nodded and took the bowl. Sipping carefully, Jack turned to Kira and gently touched her forehead. Was warmer than last night. A good sign, still. She hadn't opened her eyes, hadn't spoken a word. "What happened to you two?" Jack muttered under his breath. He didn't expect an answer, but then she got sick after the long walk. Lyra said quietly, "We had no money for transport. They kicked us out of the shelter." Jack sat beside her. Listening, she kept walking until her legs gave up. "But she never let go of my hand." Jack said nothing. His heart was tight in his chest. He had seen suffering before during the war, after the fall of Earth's outer colonies. But this was different. This was a mother and child, alone and unwanted, hiding from a world that didn't care. "She used to sing," Lyra added, almost smiling, "when I was scared. She would hum soft songs in our language." Lyra looked at Jack. "Do you think she'll ever sing again?" Jack looked down. "I don't know. But if anyone can come back from this, it's her." A sudden groan came from the cot. Lyra jumped up, her eyes wide with hope. Kira's fingers moved slowly. Her eyes fluttered open just barely. She saw her daughter first and tried to smile. "Weakly, Lyra," she whispered, voice cracked and broken. "I'm here, Mom. You're safe," Lyra said, tears finally filling her eyes. Kira looked around slowly and saw Jack sitting nearby. Fear filled her eyes as she tried to push herself up. "Stay back," she croaked. "Don't." Jack held up both hands, calm and soft. "I'm not here to hurt anyone," he said. "You passed out in the alley. Your daughter brought me to you." Kira tried to speak again, but her throat was too dry. Jack poured some water into a cup and held it near her lips. She hesitated, then took a small sip, coughing. Lyra placed her hand on her mother's cheek. "It's okay, Mom. He's good. He gave me food. He fixed the heater. He even wrapped you in a blanket." Kira looked at Jack again, this time with less fear. "Why?" she asked weakly. Jack shrugged. "Because you needed help." Kira blinked slowly. The words strange to her ears. No one had helped them in months, not without asking for something in return. And yet this man, this human stranger, gave them warmth, food, and safety, without even knowing their names. "My name is Kira," she said slowly. "I'm sorry for the trouble." "No trouble," Jack said. "I've got more space than I need. Besides, your daughter kind of made it hard to say no." Kira turned to Lyra, who gave her a big grin. "He's funny, Mom. He also knows how to fix broken machines." Jack scratched the back of his head, smiling awkwardly. Kira tried to sit up, but winced in pain. "You need rest," Jack said gently, helping her lie back. "You're not strong enough yet. Don't worry about anything. You're safe here." Kira's eyes closed again, but not from fear this time, from trust, even if small. "Thank you," she whispered. Lyra leaned closer to Jack and said softly, "See? She likes you." Jack gave a small laugh. but his face turned serious again. He looked at the mother and daughter so close, so alone, and wondered how much pain they had faced. No one should have to beg for safety, especially not a child. For now, they would stay. For now, they were under his roof. He didn't know what would come next, but one thing was clear. He couldn't walk away from them, not now, not ever. The next few days moved slowly, like soft wind passing over broken glass. Jack fixed machines in the front of his workshop, while behind the curtain, the quiet hum of healing surrounded the small alien family. Kira was getting better, though her body still trembled when she stood. She rarely spoke, and when she did, it was with careful, quiet words. Jack understood she was protecting her. Daughter, even now, even here, Lyra, on the other hand, had become a ball of energy. She followed Jack around the shop, asking about every tool, every wire, every blinking light. What's this do? Why does it spark? Can I press that? Jack always answered patiently, sometimes with a laugh, sometimes with a warning. She reminded him of someone he used to know, maybe a niece back on Earth before everything changed. Or maybe it was just the way she looked at the world, like everything was still full of wonder despite all she had lost one morning. While Jack was adjusting the battery coils on a junked hoverbike, Lyra sat on the floor beside him, holding a light. She stared at him for a long time, her silver eyes full of thought. You're strong, she said. Jack tightened a bolt and shrugged. I fix things. That's all. No, she said firmly. You're strong because you didn't walk away. Jack paused, looked at her, and smiled. Well, someone had to carry your mother, he said, trying to keep it light. She used to cry when she thought I was sleeping, Lyra whispered. She thought no one would want us. She thought we were broken. Jack's chest tightened. He stopped working, wiped his hands on a rag, and looked at her. You're not broken, he said. Neither of you. Lyra smiled, a little glow in her cheeks. Then she tilted her head, eyes curious again. Do humans get married? She asked. Suddenly, Jack blinked, surprised. Yeah, they do. Lyra leaned forward, serious now. What do they say when they want to marry someone? Jack scratched his head. Usually. Something like, will you marry me? Lyra nodded. Slowly, then stood up and ran to the back. Mom? She shouted. I know what to say now. Jack stood frozen, unsure what had just happened. A moment later, Kira walked slowly out from behind the curtain, using the wall to steady herself. She looked stronger today, though still pale. Lyra dragged her forward, smiling proudly. Tell him, Lyra said to her mother. Tell him what I told you to say. Kira looked confused, embarrassed even. I think she misunderstood something, she said softly. Jack chuckled. Probably, but Lyra wasn't done. She turned to Jack, stood tall like she was on stage, and said, Will you marry my mom? The room went silent. Jack's jaw dropped slightly, unsure how to respond. Kira's face turned bright purple, her species' way of blushing. I mean it, Lyra said, folding her arms. You're kind. You make her smile, and you don't leave when things get hard. That's what a dad is. Jack looked at Kira, who now stared at the floor. She whispered, I told her not to ask. But Jack shook his head, smiling. It's okay, he said. It's just surprising. Lyra stepped closer, her voice softer now. She hasn't smiled in months. Until you came, Jack felt something strange in his chest, an ache, but not pain. He remembered lonely nights in his shop, no one to talk to, just machines and metal. Now, somehow, this little girl and her quiet mother had brought warmth back into the cold room. Kira finally looked up, her voice clear but gentle. She's young. She doesn't understand what that question means for people like us. Jack nodded. Maybe she doesn't. Or maybe she understands it better than we do. Kira smiled, just a small one. but real. For a moment, the silence in the room felt full, not empty, not awkward, but peaceful. "Well," Jack said, trying to lighten the mood again, "if I did say yes, I think I'd be marrying both of you." Lyra jumped in excitement. "Yes. You'd be my dad too." Kira shook her head with a laugh. "Slow down, little one. He hasn't said yes." Jack laughed too. "Let's take it one day at a time." That night, as Lyra slept curled up in a warm blanket, Kira sat beside Jack. By the workshop's old heater, the room glowed orange and gold, soft shadows dancing on the walls. "Thank you," Kira said softly. "For everything," Jack nodded, staring at the little girl sleeping peacefully. She asked a big question. "Today," he said, "one I didn't expect." Kira looked at him, her voice just a whisper. "And what's your answer?" Jack smiled, looked back at her, and said, "I'm not going anywhere." It was just before dawn when Jack woke to the sound of something strange, too quiet. Too still, he sat up from the old couch. Ears alert, heart already beating faster. Something wasn't right. In the back of the workshop, Lyra slept peacefully, her tiny form curled beside her mother. Kira, still half awake, sensed the change too. Her eyes opened and looked toward the front door. Jack moved carefully, picking up a wrench as a weapon. Not much, but better than nothing. Outside, the wind had stopped, and even the usual hum of colony generators felt distant. Then, a hard knock, loud and sharp. Once, twice. Then again, faster, louder. Bam. 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 Jack froze. Kira was already sitting up now, her body tense, her eyes wide with fear. "No." She whispered, "They found us." Jack turned. "Who?" Kira stood slowly, every movement painful. "The hunters, enforcers from the Genetic Purity Board," she said, her voice shaking. "They track down unfit bloodlines like mine. And they never ask questions." Before Jack could respond, a voice came from behind the door, cold and mechanical. "Open up. By order of the Zanari Purity Council, you are harboring defectives." Jack's grip tightened on the wrench. "I think you've got the wrong place," he shouted back, but they didn't answer. Instead, something hissed near the hinges of the door. Gas. Kira pulled Lyra close, covering the girl's face with a cloth soaked in clean air. Jack ran to the breaker panel and slammed a switch. Steel shutters dropped over the front windows with a loud clank. "Sealing them in, they'll cut through," Kira said. "They always do. Then we don't give them time." Jack replied. He grabbed an old shock grenade from a storage box and handed Kira a mask. "I've got a back exit through the fuel line, but we have to move now." The door shook violently as sparks flew from the edges. Someone was cutting it open. Jack ran to a hidden trapdoor in the floor, lifting it to reveal a dark tunnel. Kira and Lyra climbed down first. Jack followed and sealed it above them. They crawled through the narrow shaft. The smell of rust and oil thickened the air. Behind them, the door burst open with a final explosive blast. Kira could hear the heavy footsteps above, the clicking of alien boots. She held Lyra tightly, whispering soft words in their own language to keep her calm. After 10 minutes, they reached the end of the tunnel and climbed up into an abandoned shuttle bay behind the shop. Jack sealed the exit and locked the panel. "We've bought time," he said, panting, but not much. Kira leaned against a wall, coughing. "They won't stop," she said. "They'll burn the whole colony if they have to. They see us as a disease." Jack looked at Lyra, then at Kira. He knew now this wasn't just about helping strangers. This was about standing up for something no one else would. "You're not a disease," Jack said. "You're a mother and a child, and I won't let them take you." Kira looked at him, eyes full of fear and something else, trust. "Why?" she asked, voice barely a whisper. Jack knelt in front of Lyra. brushing a smudge of dirt off her cheek because someone has to protect people like you. If not me, then who? Lyra's small hand reached up and grabbed Jack's sleeve. She didn't speak, but her eyes said everything. A distant boom echoed through the underground walls. They had started searching the area. Drones would be in the air soon. Scanners activated. Jack stood and took a deep breath. I have one more idea, he said, but it's risky. He opened a nearby crate and pulled out two signal jammers and an old EMP launcher. This place is a scrapyard, but I've hidden a few toys over the years. He smirked. Kira's hands trembled as she reached out. You would fight for us. Jack nodded. No, he said firmly. I'll fight with you. They didn't have an army or powerful weapons, but what they did have was something stronger each other. Lyra looked up at them, her eyes full of fire. I'll help too, she said, holding up a small wrench. Jack smiled. You're my best backup. Above them, the enemy was moving fast, but below, something stronger than metal and fire was rising. A promise, a bond, and the courage to stand together. The night was dark in the ruined shuttle bay, lit only by flickering emergency lights. Jack checked the EMP launcher while Kira wrapped Lyra in a blanket made from old insulation foam. They were hiding behind a cargo stack. Listening to the faint thumps and clicks above drones scanning the area, Jack could see how pale Kira looked. How her hands trembled, but there was something more than fear in her eyes now. She was holding something back, something heavy. Kira, Jack said softly, not taking his eyes off the scanner. I need to know what's going on. Who exactly? Are they after? Why you? Kira was silent for a moment. Then she finally spoke. Her voice was low, like a secret trying not to be heard. They're not just after me, she said. They're after her. Lyra, Jack looked over at the little girl, who was drawing shapes on the dusty floor with her finger. He frowned. Why? She's just a child, your daughter. Kira shook her head. No, not just my daughter, she whispered. She was born from something forbidden. Jack turned fully to her now. Kira looked down at her hands, like she was holding invisible guilt. I was part of a science group on a distant moon, she said. It was secret, hidden from our government. We were working with human DNA. Jack's heart skipped a beat. He said nothing and let her continue. We wanted to study compatibility between our species, she said, to see if it was possible to blend traits. But when they found out, the whole project was destroyed. The others were taken, and I ran. Jack sat quietly, trying to understand Lyra. He said slowly, she's part human. Kira nodded, tears now forming in her eyes. She's proof that life doesn't need permission to grow. Jack looked at the girl again, her silver eyes, her gentle heart, her endless questions. She was kind, curious, emotional, things that felt deeply human, but also more than that. Does she know? He asked. No, Kira whispered. And if they catch us, she'll never know. They'll erase her like a mistake. Jack clenched his jaw. They won't touch her, he said firmly. Not while I'm breathing. Kira reached out and grabbed his hand. I didn't want to tell you, she said. I thought maybe we could hide. Maybe just live quietly. But I see now there is no hiding. Jack squeezed her hand gently. You told me the truth. That means something, he said. And she deserves to grow up knowing she's not broken. She's special. Just then, a sound echoed through the by metals scraping against metal. The drones had entered through the vents. Small and silent, scanning the area with glowing blue eyes, Jack pushed Kira and Lyra behind a heavy fuel tank. He held the EMP launcher tightly, counting down in his head. 3, 2, 1. He fired, and the blast lit up the entire room with white light. The drones dropped like dead birds, sparks flying as they hit the ground. The silence returned, but it was shorter this time. They'd know where the shot came from. Jack turned to Kira. "We have to leave, now." Kira nodded, pulling Lyra close. But before they could move, Lyra tugged Jack's sleeve. "Is it true?" she asked softly. "Am I different?" Both adults froze. Kira knelt in front of her daughter, heart racing. "Why do you ask, little one?" Lyra looked down. "I heard you talking. About me, about being part human." Jack knelt beside her. "Being different doesn't mean something is wrong," he said. "It just means you're something new. Something strong." Lyra looked up at him with tears in her eyes. "Does that mean I don't belong anywhere?" Jack put his hand on her shoulder. "It means you belong with those who love you," he said, "and I do." Kira's breath caught in her throat. Lyra slowly smiled, her voice shaking. "So, I can still call you Dad?" Jack nodded, eyes wet. "I'd be proud if you did." Then the sound of footsteps, heavy ones, approached from above. The real hunters were coming now. The ones who didn't ask questions, who didn't feel mercy. Jack looked at Kira and Lyra. "We run now or we never run again," he said. They grabbed what little they had and moved toward the back exit. As they slipped into the shadows, Kira turned to Jack, her voice low. "You didn't have to stay," she said, "but you did." Jack looked ahead, where a new future waited. "I'm not just staying," he said. "I'm going to fight for her, for you, for all of it." And in that moment, under the dark ceiling of an old shuttle bay, a human, an alien, and a child who was both became something new. A family. The underground tunnel smelled like rust, oil, and something old. Jack moved ahead with a flashlight strapped to his chest. Behind him, Kira held Lyra's hand tightly, her other hand clutching a small pack of tools and rations. They had been walking for almost an hour, moving through forgotten maintenance routes. Beneath the colony, every step was careful, every sound too loud. "They'll be looking for us, above ground." Jack whispered, "So we take the old way." Kira glanced around, worried. "These tunnels are unstable," she said. "What if they collapse?" "Then we keep moving faster," Jack replied. "I know where we're going." He had a plan, but it wasn't perfect. There was an old smuggling ship hidden near the edge of the colony. It hadn't flown in years, but if he could get it started, it might be their only chance. As they walked, Lyra suddenly stopped. "I hear something," she said, her voice sharp and alert. Jack paused, turning off the light. For a moment, there was only darkness. Then click. Click, click. Metal feet above them, drones again, scanning the streets. "They're spreading out," Jack said, turning the light back on. "We don't have much time." They hurried down the tunnel until they reached a large iron door. Jack tapped the control panel, but the screen was dead. "No power," he muttered, pulling a small battery from his pack. As he worked, Kira stood behind him, watching the way his hands moved quickly, confidently. "You've done this before," she said softly. Jack nodded without looking up. "Smugglers used to pay me to fix old tech. I learned how to make things work when they shouldn't." The panel sparked, then blinked to life. With a heavy grind, the door opened, revealing a dark chamber filled with dust-covered crates and an old scout ship. "There she is," Jack said, with a grin, "my ugly little angel." The ship was small, rusty, and clearly forgotten, but its core was still intact. Jack ran up the ramp, Lyra close behind him. Kira stayed at the doorway, frozen in place. She looked at the ship like it was something out of a dream, or maybe a nightmare. Jack turned. "You okay?" She took a shaky breath. "The last time I was on a ship like this, I lost everything." Jack stepped down and gently took her hand. "This time, you gained something," he said. "Freedom." Kira nodded, stepped inside, and looked around. The cockpit was dusty, wires hanging loose like vines. But there was power. Jack could feel the faint hum in the floor. Lyra jumped into the co-pilot seat, pretending to press buttons. "Can I fly it?" she asked excitedly. "Not unless you want us to crash into a crater." Jack laughed, handing her a broken joystick. "Here, you can pretend with this." He got to work fast, checking the fuel levels, cleaning ports, restarting the navigation. AI Kira helped to her hands still weak, but her knowledge of systems sharper than he expected. "You know tech?" Jack asked, surprised. "I designed sensor software during the early moon expansions," she said. "Before the Purity Council found out about my child." Jack paused, realizing again how much this woman had lost. Yet here she was, helping him restart an engine that hadn't roared in years. "I need someone to hold the power stabilizer while I reroute ignition," he said. "I'm on it," Kira replied, without hesitation. They worked together, silently, quickly, like they'd done it before. The ship came alive, lights blinking, consoles humming, engines coughing but turning. Suddenly, boom! A loud blast echoed through the chamber, the main tunnel door buckling. "They've found us," Kira said. Eyes wide, Jack jumped into the pilot seat, punching in launch codes. The ship wasn't ready, but it didn't matter. They had one shot. "Lyra, strap in," he shouted. Kira grabbed her daughter, securing her in the co-pilot seat, then buckled herself beside her. The engines roared louder, the ship shaking violently as Jack slammed the thrusters. Another blast, this time closer. Jack looked back one last time, shadows moving at the far end of the bay. He hit launch, and the ship shot forward, crashing through the loose hangar door and blasting out into the early morning sky. Smoke and fire rolled behind them as they gained altitude. Kira gripped the seat tight. Lyra whooped with joy. "We're flying. We're really flying." Jack laughed despite the danger. "We're not dead yet." The ship rattled, alarms beeping, but they were in the air, free from the ground, free from the soldiers, as they entered the upper atmosphere. Jack set a course for a neutral zone far beyond Council reach. He turned to the others, breathing hard. "Welcome aboard the second worst ship in the galaxy," he said. Smiling, Kira smiled back. "What's the worst?" "This one. 5 minutes ago, they laughed not just because it was funny, but because it meant they were still alive, and for now, that was enough." The stars outside the window were brighter than anything Lyra had ever seen. She sat with her face pressed against the glass of the old ship, eyes wide with wonder. Down below, the colony was just a memory, tiny lights swallowed by distance. Jack leaned back in the pilot seat, eyes tired but calm. He had done it. They had escaped. Beside him, Kira sat quietly, holding Lyra's hand. Her face was peaceful now, though her eyes still held the weight of everything they'd been through. "Where are we now?" Lyra asked softly. "About 2 hours from the Arkan free zone," Jack said, checking the navigation screen. "It's not perfect, but the Council has no power there. No scanners, no patrols." Kira looked at him. "And you trust them?" "I trust that they don't care who we are," Jack replied. "That's all we need." The ship shook a little, the engines grumbling from the stress of the climb. Jack gently patted the console. "Easy, girl, just a little further." They flew in silence for a while, watching the stars stretch around them like silver roads. Then Lyra spoke, her voice soft and unsure. "So, what do we do now?" Jack glanced at Kira, then at Lyra. "We start over," he said. "New place. New names, new lives." Kira smiled gently. "What kind of names?" Jack grinned. "Something boring and forgettable." Lyra giggled. "Can I pick mine?" "Of course," Jack said. "What do you want to be?" Lyra looked thoughtful. Then smiled brightly. "Nova," she said, "because I'm new." Like a baby star, Kira and Jack both smiled at that. "It suits you," Kira said, hugging her. "And what about you?" Jack asked, looking at Kira. Kira paused for a long moment. "I'll stay Kira," she said at last. "That name came from my mother, and no council gets to take that from me." Jack nodded in respect. He hadn't asked for this journey, but he didn't regret a single step. They reached the free zone a few hours later. The docking station was small but welcoming, its lights blinking softly. A tired old worker scanned their fake IDs without much care, then waved them through. "Welcome to Nova Hollow," he muttered, bored. Lyra's eyes lit up at the name. "It has my name." Jack chuckled. "Guess this is your planet now." They settled in a quiet corner of the station, just a small room with 3 beds and a cracked window. But it was warm, it was safe, and for the first time in weeks, it was quiet. Jack found work fixing colony drones. Kira joined a local data station, helping with code translations. Lyra now calling herself Nova started school with other alien children. Her silver eyes and quiet smile made her stand out, but no one judged her. One evening, months later, they sat together outside a small cafe under the stars. Nova played with a glowing puzzle cube. Laughing softly, Kira looked at Jack, her face calm and full of peace. "You gave us a life," she said. "You gave her a future." Jack shook his head. "You gave me something too." Kira tilted her head. "What did I give you?" He looked at her for a long moment, then smiled. "A reason." She smiled back, shy and quiet. Then she pulled something from her pakata, small. Smooth stone with a carving. It was a symbol from her homeworld, one given to those who survived. "Great trials," she placed it in Jack's hand. "This is for you. You earned it." Jack turned the stone in his palm. It was warm, even in the cool night air. Nova looked up, eyes bright. "Mom, can I ask him again?" Kira laughed gently. "Nova, we talked about this." But Jack interrupted, smiling. "It's okay. Let's hear it." Nova stood proudly, walked to Jack, and said with a grin, "Will you marry my mom?" Kira's face turned soft pink, a sign of her species' blush. She looked down, but Jack stood up, walked over, and knelt beside Nova. He looked up at Kira and reached into his jacket from inside. He pulled out a small ring made from ship metal and wire. "It's not fancy," he said, "but I made it myself." Kira covered her mouth, eyes wet with emotion. Jack held out the ring. "So, what do you say?" Kira nodded, tears falling. Silently, "Yes," she whispered. "Yes." Nova cheered, jumping up and down. "I have a real dad now." Jack laughed, pulling both of them into a hug around them. Stars twinkled like tiny lanterns, and inside that small family, something bigger than blood was born. Love, trust, and a future no one could take away.